Hank Aaron, Johnny Bench, Sandy Koufax, and Willie Mays, who are all absolutely amazing players in their own right. But I'm thinking, wait a second.
The movie has just opened up in theaters. It ain't over. The Yogi Berra documentary. Tonight we sit down the director and the executive producer. Now the movie opens with a Major League Baseball production of introducing the 4 greatest living players at the 2015 All-Star Game. You just saw it. Aaron, Mays, Bench, and Koufax. Let's pick up our interview right now.
So I'm watching this ceremony with my grandpa Yogi, and I'm sort of taken aback because in my head I know that he has more World Series than all of them combined. And I look over at him and I said, "Are you dead?" And he said, "Not yet."
His personality did overshadow his prodigious baseball numbers. I mean, they're off the charts.
Berra connects and the ball goes high and far over the right field wall.
3 MVPs, the 10 World Championships, the 18 All-Star Games. But because of his sweet personality, people forget those numbers sometimes.
Yeah, no, they do, absolutely. And, you know, one of the stats that's not in the film is that he finished top 4 in MVP voting 7 years in a row, and only 2 people have ever done that in the history of baseball. It's Yogi Berra and Mike Trout. So he's not usually thought of at that level. You know, most people knew Yogi was good, but not enough people knew he was great.
And that incredible stat that you had, that 2 players in history, 350 or more homers and 500 strikeouts or less, Joe DiMaggio and Yogi.
And that's in Major League Baseball history, not just in Yankee history. And I don't think people think of him as in the same breath as Joe DiMaggio. My favorite stat in the film is 1950, 656 plate appearances, hit .322, 28 home runs, 124 RBIs, and struck out only 12 times.
Yeah.
Guys today are doing that in a weekend.
So, Sean, why now? It's been a while since Yogi has passed. Yep. Why do you make the movie now?
You know, well, some dust has settled, I think, a little bit, and his legacy has kind of continued to fade away, I think, as a ball player in a lot of people's minds. You know, he was this pitch man for years and years, and he was this caricature.
If you get hurt and miss work, it won't hurt to miss work. And they give you cash, which is just as good as money.
And, you know, I think society has a hard time allowing people to be both funny and good. And so most people's mind, he was this kind of funny, quirky, you know, old guy. They didn't really remember what an amazing player he was. And so, I don't know, the timing felt right. And, you know, we got the project rolling and got Lindsay and the family on board. And here we are.
And Lindsay, the lack of respect for Yogi started really early, like at the first Cardinal tryout.
Yeah, he was kind of ridiculed in the press. He was told that he looked like an ape and a gorilla. Joe DiMaggio said he looked like a fire hydrant. Life magazine said he looked like a fat girl running in a too tight skirt. He was told he was too ugly to be a Yankee. I do not know what that means, but he very famously said, "I never saw anyone hit with his face." So he was pretty able to let all of that roll off of his back. But yeah, even back then, underestimated and underappreciated.
One of the most powerful moments of the movie was Dale Berra, his son, a terrific Major League shortstop, has cocaine issues. National story at the time, and Dale comes home, and then the way your grandfather handled it and the results from it.
Yeah, I think for us it was important to include Uncle Dale's story. We wanted to make sure that this was not just a baseball movie, and we wanted it to hit people at many different levels. Grandpa's a first-generation Italian immigrant. He's a D-Day veteran. He's a beautiful 65-year love story with my Grammy Carmen. But with Uncle Dale, I don't think there's anyone out there who can't relate to the lengths a parent is willing to go to help, and in this case, save a child. So it was important to us just to further humanize Grandpa and make him relatable to people.
So what did he actually do when he came home, and what did Yogi tell Dale?
Well, it's you know, we go through it pretty extensively in the film, but essentially he sat Dale down and the whole family was there, and he said, your brothers aren't going to be your brothers anymore, and your mother's not going to be your mother anymore, and I'm not going to be your father anymore if you continue on this path. And so he really kind of shot him straight, and, you know, Dale has been clean ever since, and he wrote a book about it, and we were able to film that. Actually, the first thing we filmed for the documentary was Dale's book signing, and so that kind of kicked off this documentary shoot. It was a few years ago. It's been taking a while to get this one done. It's been in the works for about 4 or 5 years.
But never touched alcohol or a substance after that speech by Yogi.
No, and he said it. You can call it what you want, a bolt of lightning or whatever it was, but he's almost 3 decades sober now.
I guess the first thing I should do is thank everybody who made this day necessary.
And you also analyze the brilliance of Yogi, the lines that nobody goes to that restaurant anymore. When you come to a fork in the road, you take it. There's a bit of brilliance in all of that.
Oh no, he was absolutely a genius, and I think we really tried to pull that out in the film as well. It's like people thought, oh, maybe he wasn't bright, he dropped out of school at a young age, and he didn't maybe speak the way people wanted him to speak. But at his core, he was really a genius, and he really did tap into some sort of higher truths out there. And he was just so authentic, and I think that really shines through. And those quotes are just great examples of how his mind worked and how he had no filter. He just he said what he felt, and what he felt was right.
What about his relationship with Joe Garagiola?
Oh, I mean, lifelong friends. I mean, they both said they don't remember meeting anyone else earlier than each other, and they grew up across the street from each other. And Joe had this great line: usually when you make the big leagues, you're usually the best player in your city or your town or your school. But living next to Yogi, he wasn't even the best player on his block.
And the love story is probably the best aspect of it all. Yeah. And if you're watching it, and if you consider yourself a member of the human race, you're gonna cry. And I was crying last night. They met when Carmen was a waitress at Biggie's, a really popular Italian restaurant here in town. And just how about describe the relationship, because you had a front row seat for it.
Yeah, I always love, so Joe Garagiola used to talk about when Grandpa saw Grammy at Biggie's, and they would go to the bar and drink glasses of water because they couldn't afford to eat there. And Joe would say, Yogi, can we get out of here? I'm hungry, I want to get something to eat. And Grandpa would say, Joe, I just want to look at her. And my whole life, for the 39 years I had them, that was how he looked at her. I just want to look at her. It was like he had stars in his eyes all the time, like he'd won something. And they had such a cute, sweet relationship. 65 years of marriage. Grammy would say it was because he was on the road for half of it, but he very famously said, we have a good time together even when we're not together. It was a really, really cool thing to witness.
So Sean, when you're putting together something about an athlete who hasn't played in so long, how do you get it all together?
I mean, it was difficult. Cramming 90 incredible years of Yogi's life into 98 minutes was a real task. I mean, I come from a screenwriting background. This is only my second documentary. I come from the scripted feature film world. So for me, I just had to structure it into this 3-act structure, and his life kind of fell pretty neatly into a 3-act structure. So I was able to kind of, start, I've been saying this before, but it all goes back to me. It goes back to Aristotle, this idea of some sort of first-act crisis, some sort of third-act catharsis. And I was able to kind of sort of use those as my guideposts to take his incredible life and string it together in something that is emotional and engaging.
Final thought: if your grandfather just watched this in heaven, what do you think his reaction would be after he turns it off?
I mean, I think he would be completely overwhelmed that there's a movie about him opening in 800 theaters across the country. He had a postage stamp. He was on a postage stamp a few years ago now, and I think that would have blown his mind that a first-generation Italian immigrant kid from the Hill in St. Louis was on a U.S. postage stamp. I think he would be kind of surprised that we're still talking about him because he was such a humble guy and didn't really think of himself as famous. Part of me thinks he would say, Lindsay, stop talking about me. But I think overall he'd be very proud, and I think he would like the film. He liked movies, so I think he would watch.
Thank you so much, Sean Mullen, Lindsay Berra. It Ain't Over opened in St. Louis this weekend. It's one of the best documentaries you can ever see.